hold the microphone and just talk myths. So this was an unusual ask. I'm not typically asked to recite someone else's work, but it actually spurred a lot in me. So on the third night of our 2024 National Convention, Amanda Gorman delivered this speech, The Sacred Scene. We gather at this hallowed place because we believe in the American dream. We face a race that tests if this country we cherish shall perish from this earth, and if our earth shall perish from this country. It falls to us to ensure that we do not fall. For a people that cannot stand together, we cannot stand at all. We are one family, regardless of religion, class, or color. For what defines a patriot is not just our love of liberty, but our love of one another. This is loud in our country's call because while we all love freedom, it is love that frees us all. Empathy emancipates, making us greater than hate or vanity that is the American promise. Powerful and pure, divided we cannot endure, but united we can endeavor to humanize our democracy and endear democracy to humanity. And make no mistake, coherence is the hardest task history ever wrote. But tomorrow is not written by our odds of hardship, but by the audacity of hope, by the vanity of our vote. Only now, approaching this rare air, are we aware that perhaps the American dream is no dream at all, but instead a dare to dream together. Like a million roots tethered, branching up humbly, making one tree, this is our country, from many one, from battles won, our freedoms sung, our kingdom come has just begun. We redeem this sacred scene, ready for our journey from it together. We must birth this early republic and achieve an unearthly summit. Let us not just believe in an American dream, let us be worthy of it. Amanda Gorman. Someone once told me they were being funny, I guess. There wasn't a microphone that I didn't like. They wasn't wrong. I mean, I love reading the works of other people, but this is MLK Day, and I appreciate the organizers being intentional in their diversity because oftentimes some of our organizers are not. So I want to thank you for being intentional, making sure that you made this inclusive of everyone. But it is also fitting that we take a moment on this holiday to amplify the work of Amanda Gorman. There are people in places within our nation who want us to erase the magnificent voice and the voices of other Black Americans who share our unique history in America. The work of the first National Youth Poet Laureate and the youngest poet to read at a presidential inauguration seems to be way too offensive to some of our fellow Americans who really want us to forget what it has taken for Black Americans to become full participants in our society. And to be very clear, some of those folks will be elected officials in our government over the next 4 years. They don't want their young children to learn about the atrocities committed by their ancestors on innocent humans whose only guilt was being born Black on this continent. But they are fine with our young Black children having to navigate the mental trauma that comes with generational oppression and the long-lasting impact it has on our communities without the necessary resources. Then they want to gaslight us into believing having no self-determination, no liberties, or freedom of movement was a better situation for Black people. You heard Ron DeSantis tell you that under slavery, we learned some skills. that helped make us prosperous. That somehow living under slavery and Jim Crow was being better than being able to determine our own destiny. Now I ask you, what makes these deep thinkers of history think enslaved Africans didn't already have those skills when they came over here? It don't take much for white supremacists to believe that they are the only people of innovation. And while this nation built its wealth on free labor, elected officials for decades denied black folks access to that wealth. See, I feel that it's important that we tell the truth, because this is MLK Day. But they don't want our youth to study and understand how what happened back then impacts what's happening now. You know, they want to tell you black folks are just lazy. That's what they want to tell you. Ain't nothing lazier than owning other people to pick your cotton. But you know that's the saying, if you do not study history properly, it is going to be repeated. And we are seeing that it is being repeated right now. Separating immigrant families seeking asylum, mass incarceration in for-profit prisons, and then using that labor for pennies on the dollar. They out there fighting them fires in California. And reminiscent of it being illegal to teach black people how to read, a bill, HB 1136, is in our State House right now to do away with our constitutionally protected public education. This ain't new, y'all. We're seeing it happen again. But this is where we are. But we will say to those who would deny our freedoms, not today. Not on this Martin Luther King holiday. But let's be clear. On this Martin Luther King Day, many will pervert the words of Dr. King to make themselves appear to understand his nonviolent movement for justice. As they quote the passage from his iconic I Have a Dream speech, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And then they will turn around and sign executive orders ending diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that would have helped secure that dream. They will quote Dr. King when he says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, while at the same time crafting new legislation that target our LGBTQ plus community, and more specifically our trans youth. As they continue to quote the man who marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, to highlight the violence and injustice committed against black people who are just trying to be civically engaged and register to vote, they write more legislation making it harder for anyone to register and make it more difficult to vote. Ms. Julia Vaughn is the person you need to talk to about that. As they quote the man who went to Chicago to march and fight for fair housing, they ignore the lack of affordable housing in our nation and empower the landlords who extort hard-working people for profit. Then they have the gall to quote the man who was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, while marching for fair working conditions for the striking sanitation workers. But then they turn around and then state after state, they want to turn them into right-to-work places and continue to craft legislation that bust unions, making it difficult for the working class people, the ability to collectively bargain for better wages and better conditions. I want to tell those folks out there who are talking on both sides of their neck And I want to remind you, in earshot of my voice, you can kill a man, but you cannot kill a movement. And that is why we celebrate his life and legacy today. Dr. King said, the privileged classes never give up their privilege without strong resistance. Now, I know some of y'all saying, didn't we already have these fights? Haven't we had these conversations already? But fighting for our rights is a never-ending struggle. It is just now our turn to step up and do what Dr. King called dangerous unselfishness. Many of you are sitting in your chairs wondering to yourself, well, what are we going to do over the next 4 years? Oh my God, oh my God. Oh my Lord Jesus, what are we going to do? Well, when you don't know what to do, I implore you, each and every one of you, to look to your black brothers and sisters, because we know what to do. When law enforcement turned the water hoses and jailed our youth, we stayed resilient in the movement. When they beat us, spat on us, and yelled vile things at our children for simply trying to integrate schools, we stayed resilient in the movement. When the domestic terrorists bombed our churches and killed our little girls, we stayed vigilant in the movement. We are the descendants of the survivors of the Middle Passage. We are the descendants of the survivors of Reconstruction and Jim Crow. We are the survivors of Bloody Sunday and the Civil Rights Movement. We stay resilient in the movement. This ain't new to us. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to do this for you. We've done enough free labor. You ain't getting no more. But if you believe in justice for everybody, you will bring whatever it is that you have to the movement. If you are a tech bro, could you design a website for somebody? If you are a fundraiser, can you find one of these wonderful organizations and say, hey, I'm gonna help you fundraise? If you are like Mr. Gully over here and you know his grandmother who knows how to make chocolate chip cookies, could you make some cookies for the movement? Whatever you have, bring it to the movement. You don't have to be specialized in nothing extravagant. Just bring your energy and your resources and your people, because you can't sit on the sidelines anymore and thinking, well, it ain't really gonna be that bad for me. Because if you are like me, an African-American, cross-dressing lesbian who just happens to be left-handed, the next 4 years could be treacherous. My life could be in danger, probably because I don't know how to shut up. So I need your protection and your help. Use your privilege to navigate and move around the world to help this movement. It is not the time to sit back and go, no, that ain't me. I'm sorry that happened to them. Yeah, I'm talking about black folk, because it is MLK Day, and it was about the struggle. It ain't about nothing else but that struggle. Ever since the boats landed here in 1619 for black folks, it's been about that struggle. And we need our allies. We can't do it by ourselves. The Underground Railroad did not happen without amazing allies. Reconstruction does not happen without amazing allies. Getting the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act passed does not happen without allies. We need you. Okay, so on this day, when the 34-count convicted felon, rapist, narcissistic liar is sworn into office, we will celebrate a Prince of Peace, and we will follow his guide for justice for all. And we resist, reclaim, and rebuild the dream and the promise of America. Thank you.